All right, so here we are checking out Trash Panda. I'm joined by Jason Lever, and I've got the game open and ready to go here. And I guess we can sort of start in with our first question, which is I guess the inspiration behind this is pretty self evident. I assume, do you live in Toronto presently or grew up here
Yeah, I
maybe?
do. I do. I live actually, you're playing the Fallingbrook level there. I actually live kind of close to this area. But yeah, I live in Toronto, and as one might expect, on of all nights, garbage night, I was taking out the trash one night, and I was just sort of thinking about, what am I going to do next with, what's the next thing for me? And I just humming and hawing, and about a year prior to this particular fateful garbage night, I had purchased the raccoon asset off the Unity asset store. It's by Malber's Animations, and I had the animal controller, and I was just sort of thinking, I bought it because I'm a Torontonian and I like raccoons, so I didn't have a purpose for it. I was like, I need this in my life, but I didn't know what it was for, and eventually I was taking out the garbage. I was like, well, garbage, this is their night to shine. This is the night that we all hate them for, right? And I thought, well, wouldn't that be a thing? If I could do something with the asset with that distinctive Toronto trash bin, and my original idea was to try and maybe make an augmented reality thing to have dancing on the trash bin or something like that. But then I don't know. I just got thinking about the physics, how the physics engine works, because I hadn't really played with that very much yet. And that was sort of the genesis. Was like, well, how can I put these things together? And I think in another asset pack I had a trash bin that looked a lot like Toronto trash bins. So I just kind of put them together. I started experimenting, and I was really pleased with what was turning out. And at that point, it was still just a hobby. It was just something to ignore the pandemic from, And but then what I did was I shared in a Birchcliff community Facebook group. It's one of those like Facebook groups that like every community probably has, where people complain about parking and fireworks and stuff. And I just shared some gameplay footage in that group, saying like, "Hey, look, I'm doing this thing. It's kind of inspired by our neighborhood," because I was sort of building it to like look kind of like a street in East Toronto, right? And but that post was kind of one of the most it had the most engagement that I had seen in like a long time for anything I'd done on social media. So I was really excited about that. And then a few weeks later, a journalist from CTV reached out to me just through Facebook, saying like, "Hey, I'm doing a piece on video games, and can I do a piece on you and your game?" I'm like, "What? Okay, sure. I'm an attention whore, And ooh, that was a good one. I'm watching you play here.
Yeah,
That was, you got some good spread on that one. Uh,
yeah.
so we did this interview, and it was a lot of fun. He was a really fun guy to speak with, and but that post, when he posted it later that day, I think it first went on CP24, and then later in the evening news, then of course went online, and then next thing you know, my cousin is telling me that friends of his were sharing a link to Reddit about this, and not knowing that his cousin had anything to do with this. So I was like, what? He's like, yeah, man, I think you're kind of going viral. I'm like, no, but they were, and then I realized like my DMs were all lit up with other journalists saying like, can I do the show? Can I do this with you? Can I do that with you? And so next thing you know, there were like blog TO articles. I was on the morning news one. I was on like the Evan Solomon show. Like it's just it was a crazy week. It was a very exciting week. At which point I realized, I guess I better make this game then, because the internet has spoken, and that was the kind of the crazy beginning of this thing. And so I thought to myself, I could probably do this. I could get this done in like 6 months. That was 18 months ago, and I'm still working on
Oof. Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It is my first. Like I've done things in Unity, and I've made little tiny things like on itch.io and stuff like that. But this is certainly my biggest thing, and I didn't know what I didn't know, and so I'm certainly still learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so have you participated in TOJam before?
So what I've have no TO Jam. I've not had the luxury of taking part in. I've been in other game jams, but yeah, the last TO Jam, I can't remember why I couldn't do it. I think it was just out of town or something like that. I really wanted to. I thought that'd be pretty cool. My background actually is in filmmaking, so I'm a writer, director, editor, all those kinds of things. And oh, you've approached the Kai Wolf. That's my like guardian of the level that keeps you corralled into like each level is basically 1 square kilometer.
Okay.
uh, and I think, well, what's a way to keep a raccoon in place? Like, okay, well, they don't like Kai wolves, which are apparently becoming more common than coyotes or wolves. They're a hybrid creature.
I did not know. Wait, that's a real thing?
It's a thing. Yeah, I had one in my backyard. They're massive. They're so big. The first time I saw one in my backyard, it was as big as like a small horse. Like my brain didn't know how to process what I was looking at, and for a second I thought I was looking at a horse, until my wife came running to the window and she's like, "Oh my gosh, it's a wolf!" I'm like, and then all of a sudden it became in focus, like, "Oh my gosh, that isn't a horse. That's a wolf, but it's so big." Oh yeah, so this is you're seeing the garbage truck now.
Yeah.
In the menu settings, you'll see that there's a setting to enable or disable garbage collection. Oh, and if you zoom in there, there you go.
Yeah,
You have just seen a power up.
Yes. I came
If you
across
hit
this
the
before.
jump button, you'll go higher. So this goes on for about a minute, being able to fly after eating a trippy mushroom. This is a recent addition. It started out as a bug. My daughter, who at the time she was 8, she and her friends, they were playing the game, and I had a bug where if you, I guess it wasn't checking the grounding to see if it could jump again, and they could just jump and jump and jump, and
Yeah.
they were laughing and giggling, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is the best!" And I was like, "Okay, but it's a mistake," so I fixed it, and then I got in trouble. So I was like, "Oh, well, maybe the jumping thing can be an actual feature, you know." I think you might be butting up against the barrier.
Yeah, I wanted to see if I could use my magical powers to get over the Kai Wolf, but
Yeah, I
alas.
think I saw ahead for that one. What's actually kind of, you'll be able to tell as soon as I say it, but that's actually, oh, there you go, it's over.
Yeah.
But that was actually the swim animation.
Yes.
But without the context of water, I was like, hey, that looks like flying.
I had a feeling that was the case.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I totally know what you mean in terms of like something that is just that like pure fun, silly. I'm glad you found a way to like justify adding it back into the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and adding things to the game, like I've been very, very conscious of not wanting to have scope creep. I'm just terrified. Like I want this done because I have other ideas, things I want to do. We all have that danger of thinking of newer, shinier things to work on. But I've been very diligent and keeping my scope creep to a minimum. But I've also been, I've been sort of balancing that worry of not having scope creep with feeling like, is this actually a game? Like, do I have enough game stuff in this? Because in a way, this is closer to more like a toy, really. Like I was just saying to a friend of mine today, like, I wouldn't call like a remote controlled car a game, but you call that a toy. And in a way, because there isn't, I've got points, I sort of added score because I thought, okay, that kind of makes it more like a game. But in a way, this is just the intent behind this was to do something that is peaceful and relaxing and escapist and just where the pressure's off, which is why I made sure, like, you can't die in this, you can't get hurt. And when like the garbage truck is driving around, it'll never hit you. Or if there's other streets have traffic on it. When there's no Kai Wolf, then I sometimes will just have heavy traffic, and the raccoon will be like, nope, just not going to cross it, and so you're never going to get hurt. So it's the least gamey game. Which of course I'm, as a first-time game maker, I'm very self-conscious of, but I also feel like I'm making the right decision because it's just for fun. And I'm certainly noticing like young kids, like they are totally satisfied with it. Like this has everything they need. They just want to go around and make a mess and knock over everything they can. And but then I also got really into the idea of like, well, since this is inspired by Toronto, can I actually set it in Toronto? And so that's when I started researching ways of importing street map data. And so that was an early thing where I again, it was like, like, okay, I don't want this to be scope creep, but I'm going to give myself exactly 1 month to figure out, can I do it or not? And sure enough, I could. There was it started using an asset from the Unity asset store called CityGen 3D. And with that, you're able to bring in OpenStreetMap data. And the guy who made that asset, he's been really helpful, and he's been like making improvements with it as I've been going along. It's like, you know what I need this to do this, and next release it has that feature, so it's been a great collaboration in that way. But I was able to make the houses look just how I wanted them, because I wanted it to have that sort of not be a cartoon, but be a, I don't know, surrealist, impressionist. Not too real. But simple, very simple looking, and very simple color palette. Where really, it's greens and blues, and then the only other colors, greens, blues, and grays, and then the garbage being the exception, where like that's where the color is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the maps are imported from this open maps.
Yeah, if you go to openstreetmaps.org,
OpenStreetMaps. Okay.
yeah, and that's it's a repository of street map data, and actually it's more than that, because it like includes even features from the city, like it knows where every bus stop is. It even knows like the footprint of every building,
Oh
which is,
wow.
I think, is pretty cool. Yeah, it's a lot of. I'm sure it's the same data that Google Maps is using. Like, you put them side by side, they're almost identical. So I'm sure they're using the same database, or at least a very similar one, anyway. And so, like the houses and the buildings that you see in this, well, they're not exact recreations of the houses, and some are 2 stories and some are 3 stories or whatever. But the footprint is the same as real life. So I think that's kind of neat. And oh, you found another one.
Yeah. So then, after you sort of like create the map based on that data, do
Mm-hmm.
you have to add elevation, or does it have that as part of it?
No, that's the neat thing. Yeah, so it actually grabs NASA elevation data, and so it does that. And so I did have to write some of my own code to use the tool, because I'm not using the CityGen tool, as it was made for, right? Because for instance, like it uses Unity terrain trees, and I just don't like those trees. I wanted these ones instead.
Mhm.
So I wrote a program to like build trees, but not to overlap houses and not to be on roads, and stuff like that, right? Uh, uh, Plus, one of the tools that it does have is it creates. You can have roadside placement, so that's how like the street lamps are, and actually for that matter, the parked cars and the recycle bins, those were all placed more or less on the street automatically. But then I also wanted to make sure that the trash bins were, there's only one per house.
Mhm.
So I had to write a program where it decided like, okay, well, this has already had one bin, so move along now. This bin can't be here, and so I kind of do a bit of a cleanup. And then as for the traffic, which you haven't seen very much of yet, but like the garbage truck, and then there's traffic as a border, I'm actually using the Unity's Cinemachine dolly track as the path for all those things. So it just sits on a cart and zips around, and all that jazz.
Nice. Yeah, because I think it's fantastic to be able to like make use of these features, as like just because they exist for one feature of the engine doesn't mean you can't use them for other things.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's kind of fun, like cramming these square pegs into round holes.
All
Okay,
right.
let's see now. Yeah, will the raccoon, the nemesis, do it this time? I don't know why. I ran into some problems the other day. Okay, and they're facing the wrong way.
Oh.
Bother. That's another thing
Oh.
I've been meaning to fix for like 3 months and haven't gotten around to.
Oh. Oh no! Come on, you can do it, buddy.
No, it's
You can
not
do it.
doing it.
Go.
I don't know. Oh, I do know what changed. Okay, I
Let's
think
see
I
if you
know how to
just.
fix that. Will it get the next one?
Hmm.
No, it's not doing it. Oh, I must have turned off the force that gets applied on a punch. Like, it's obviously working for you, but
Yeah.
not for them. So, all right, adding it to the list.
Well, there we go. Looks like, oh, he managed to knock that one over.
Yep, did that one. Good.
But I think he managed to knock that one over just from like sheer momentum, as opposed to.
Often that's all it takes with these things.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
I'm
actually,
getting him points.
I was watching one streamer play this, and it was like they're like an hour into it, and they're like, "Oh wow, he can punch." It's like, "Oh yeah," because you don't actually need to; you could just run into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of messed around with the controls a bit to find that I could punch and jump and stand on
And
my hind legs.
I'm curious, are you using a controller or keyboard and mouse?
Oh, I'm using a controller.
Okay, great. I hate keyboard and mouse personally.
So the like stand on hind legs, was that just a fun thing that was part of the asset pack?
That's correct. Yeah, and it serves absolutely no purpose other than looking cute. Now, I'm thinking about changing how the scoring happens. Oh, that's interesting. So you did complete it. It should have come over to you. Interesting. All right, I got to rethink this.
A bit soft locked here.
Yep.
Just gonna relaunch the game.
Oh well.
So we're clearly still playing a like work in progress build of the game. How far along do you consider, like, how much more do you envision, if you were to say percentage wise? And I acknowledging that this could change based on what we're seeing here. How much more?
I think I mean, I feel like I'm almost there. Like I don't intend to add more bells and whistles. I do intend to add more levels. That's a big thing. But fortunately, with the way I've built my tools, in theory, it should be more or less a click of a button to make a new neighborhood. And then obviously, like, touch-ups and whatnot, right? So that should come pretty quickly. So I don't know. I kind of feel like, we're almost there. And so, but the question that still remains for me is like, well, how long is that going to take me? Especially considering, my day job, which, I do a lot of corporate video post-production. All of a sudden I'm busy for the first time in months, which, the bank account is happy about, but Trash Panda might have to go on the back burner again for a few weeks.
Yeah. So can I get close to this guy here? No.
Yeah, you'll be able to get a bet. There you go. He'll actually stop walking once you get close enough.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all just in the name of like keeping my mobility. Like it's sort of justifying an invisible wall.
That's exactly right. Yeah, when I first started thinking about this, like, like how do you have a barrier?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have open world games, like you have cliffs or you put them on an island or whatever, right? Like there's these things that you do to make it to keep the level finite.
Yeah.
But like this is a game that's set in a real place, so like what's the equivalent to a wall or a cliff or a wall or fortunately in Toronto, like the south, we actually have a lake, so that's
Mm-hmm.
great, but that leaves the east and the north and the west. And so that's when I started thinking of like, okay, maybe on major thoroughfares I can have traffic zooming by. So if you play one of the other level that there at Swansea, it's that you'll get to Bloor Street, and I've got traffic on that zooming by, and so that's one barrier. So I've got either traffic or the Kai Wolf or Lake Ontario. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I've been able to. Oh, you actually start right there on Bloor Street, so you'll see the cars are just starting to spawn. And it's the same thing with the Kai Wolf. Like if you try to walk into traffic, he'll just stop and say, "Nope, not doing that."
All right. So, are there any other features in the demo, this version that I'm playing, that you'd like to show off this time?
Oh, you know what? You didn't get to show off the garbage truck. I'm really
Right.
proud of that one. Although it must be in the menu settings, it must be disabled. So if you go into options, features,
Hmm.
garbage collection, there you go.
Yeah.
Now I don't have a garbage truck on this level, so you'd have to go back to Fallingbrook.
Okay.
But as soon as at the spot that you spawn there, you'll see the garbage truck come right by, and I was really pleased with that. My cousin, oops, we're going back into Swansea.
Yeah.
My cousin, he does a bit of 3D modeling, and so he modeled the garbage truck for me, which I'm really pleased with. And yeah, it should be. Yep, it's selected. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, so the truck comes along, and I'm not a modeler and I'm not an animator, but I can code. And
Hmm.
so the animation of the truck that is coming with the claw that comes out to grab the bin, that's all procedural animation. So it's all done with sensors that reaches. It's okay. There's a bin here. I'll stop. Okay, now extend the claw. Oh, I better stop extending here. Close the bin. Close the claw. All that stuff. So it's I'm really pleased with how that worked out. And also, of course, detect like, oh, this bin has already been spilt, so I
Hmm.
shan't pick it up. And but the idea is, you'll see now your score just went down. That's because it basically took the points from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He stops when he sees me.
yeah, he'll stop right in front of you and honk at you until you move out of the way.
Yeah. Knowing that this is programmatically based, I can't help but want to see to what extent I can mess with it. So let's see. Oh no, he does immediately know that
Oh, nope,
can't
you
pick it
gave
up
up.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're in the proximity there.
Yeah, I see. So the you actually have a pretty significant like punching force in the raccoon. Was that also just like a not necessarily well, I don't know, maybe you
No, and
can
that's I think leftovers. So I think right now it's like set to a level 25, and that's mainly because I'm trying to sort out a bug, so I like ramped it up. I think I've decided that around level 8 of strength is good. That being said, I am thinking maybe I should actually come up with a third power up, and that be making you super strong for a period of time.
So what's the second one then? Because there's the flight power up. There's
Oh
the
yeah,
like
and if
strong.
you find a donut, you'll get the zoomies. You'll run super fast,
Okay.
and that is a riot. And I think I have it set up. Oh, this is one of those things like no one will know unless I tell you. But
Right.
after, because of the area codes 416 and 647, after 416 pieces of garbage, a donut will appear, and after 647, the flying thing will appear.
Oh. I must
Yeah.
have never noticed the donut because I guess I knocked over a similar number of things because I got the flying thing
Yeah, I
in a
noticed that
similar
too, which
number.
kind of makes me wonder, like, did I actually remember to add the donut to the garbage bin? Because yeah, I haven't seen it yet, and it has the same little twinkly lights like the mushroom did. So I don't know. We'll see. Or is it? Oh no, no. You know what? No, no. After every 416, it randomly picks one of the two. That's it. You just
Okay.
haven't been randomly given one.
So the Kai Wolf in the background there, is that like moving on like the sort of boundary point of the map?
Yeah, I'm actually using the Cinemachine Dolly track again. So there's a track that goes all around the level, and there's a great built-in method on the Dolly cart, which is find closest point to a transform. So
Hmm.
it finds the closest point on the track to the raccoon, and then it'll zip its waypoint to that point. And so whenever the waypoint moves, then the Kai Wolf moves to that waypoint. So it'll always be kind of close to you. Unless of course you get really far away, in which case it just it destroys the Kai Wolf, and then it'll respawn it once you're close enough again, just to be more performant.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense.
Hmm.
And then what's the oh, there's the garbage truck. Is it also same thing following a
Yeah,
dolly
yeah, it's
track?
following a path. Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
is there Is there a limit to the number of bins that it'll pick up, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's just on one route, so it basically does a circuit, and so yeah, it's coming up to you now, and it'll just keep going. But what I did do though is it stops. Oh, hey, you're riding it. That actually, if you go, oh wait, have I done it yet? My intention is to make that an achievement. If you ride the truck, you'll get an achievement unlocked. But I see that I haven't added that trigger, so I'll get to that. That's a surprise one. Ooh, so it's insider information for you. But yeah, so the truck though, if it gets far enough away from you, basically once it's out of earshot, it'll stop collecting, because I just felt like that wasn't fair to
Yeah,
be
makes
taking
sense.
points from you when it's on the other side of the town, you know?
Yeah, I guess there would have to be some way to constrain it from, like, if it gets too far away from you. I don't know. That is, I think it's a good solution for now, at least.
I think it's definitely a case of good enough, you know? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
it's you know, like I'm not trying to make something that's stressful. I just want you to have fun.
Yeah.
And not feel cheated, I guess you could say.
All right. So what is going to be the purpose of the eating mechanic? Is it just for bonus points?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I just thought it was cute, and the sound effect, actually, it's funny. I have a pretty extensive sound library of sound effects, but in the end, I actually just recorded my own mouth going like that. Even its running, its panting sound, that's just my voice.
Yeah, yeah. Yum, 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 yum. Oh my goodness. And then, um, okay. So I think we've talked about most of the things I had written down here. But is there any feedback in particular that you're like still looking for on this project?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm some of the feedback I'm still wondering is, like, you know, like, is this a game enough? Like, I think I've settled on, like, it kind of has to be, or else I'll never finish it, right? But then lies the question of, like, okay, well, what's a fair price point for this? And of course, you know, the obvious advice is, you know, look for comparable games and see what they're charging. But I haven't found something that's quite like this. I mean, it's people often will compare it to Untitled Goose Game, but like this is nowhere near as sophisticated as that game. You know, so like, you know, charging anywhere close to that, I feel like would be it would be way too much, right? You know, it's been compared to, I forget what else, a few
Goat
other things that are like
Simulator?
way smaller. Oh, did you say Simulator?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's been mentioned a few times, and I actually don't remember what that one is priced at. But again, I kind of feel like my game isn't as sophisticated as those ones. And so I don't know if this is like imposter syndrome talking or if I'm actually, you know, accurate, but you know, like I just feel like this isn't as big a thing as those games, right? Yeah, because Untitled Goose Game it sells for 23 Canadian dollars, and then Goat Simulator, oh, okay, it sells for 11.5 dollars Canadian. But in the end, I actually settled on what did I settle on in US dollars? I settled on $13, $12.99, and but then in Canadian dollars that translates to about 14 and a half. And then just to be cheeky, you are allowed to, or you're able to specify an exact price per region. So I changed the price to $14.16 because I thought that was funny, because
Yeah,
again, the
416, yeah.
1416. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that that's fair. Like, I don't want to cheat myself, of course, but then I also don't want to, you know, I don't want someone to spend what they think is too much money and then be like, boo, you know, bad review, you know, too expensive for what it is. And so that's something that I think about quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you need to consider like what you're like how long are you expecting somebody to play this game? Like
Yeah, and that's an excellent question. You know, I you know, and that's going to very much depend on the type of player you are. Like another cousin of mine, like he said he's really pleased with it, and he's impressed and proud. He says, "But this is not my kind of game. Like, I'll only spend like 5-10 minutes on it." But then, like, my daughter's friend spent like they had to like start putting a timer on to make him stop because he was loving it so much. So like that was like that's an 8-year-old, mind you, but but then I've also seen other streamers where like they'll play this for like 2-3 hours straight, and I've noticed that we're going through cars there. All right, things change. Add that to the to-do list. But yeah, some Twitch streamers that have played this, like one of the things they like about it is because it's so low maintenance and doesn't require a lot of brain power. They like it for when they just want to do their just chatting type stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing it right now. You're having a conversation and you're messing about, and so it kind of works out nicely for this kind of a scenario, right? So I can see that being a prospective audience,
Mm-hmm.
But like someone who wants to play, plays strategy games and BattleTech or some Star Wars game, like this is not their cup of tea. And they'll spend 5 minutes and say, yeah, that's cute. I don't know if it's $14, but
Yeah, I guess it always comes down to a matter of how clear the audience gets the impression of what the game is, right? Because anyone who gets a clear sense of like, okay, this is the game, this is what I expect for the price that I'm paying. This bin won't stop shaking. I'm just gonna get a little away from that. Nope, still not far enough. The bin is still
that's hilarious.
a little restless there. Yeah, right. Like just the general sense of if you clearly convey like this is what the game is, and if you're into that, then you're gonna have fun with this. Don't expect anything more than what you see here. Then people are going to buy it because they want it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, I think I have conveyed that on the Steam page, but you tell me, do you think I've conveyed it accurately and honestly?
Yeah, I mean on the Steam page you've mentioned so far a couple more features than are like currently present in the game.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
I mean that's not like, I don't know, when you say power-ups and there are presently like 2 power-ups in the game, I think if you can add a couple more of those, it would round it out nicely. And
I think that sounds pretty smart. Especially, like we just discussed the one where
yes.
make you stronger, so that's a good one. And yeah, if I just come up with another one.
Yeah, I think having just a little bit more of the variety there would help. So running infinitely right now? Oh, I think it's because I was close to the challenge raccoon here.
Oh yes, you've triggered the challenge. Yes.
Okay. My gosh, because these bins are spectral, and you can end up triggering this. Because if I had tried to knock over any of these bins, then I would have like messed with the challenge, right?
That's right. That being said, if you clicked reject on the challenge, then you could still just go in there and play them. And actually, if you wanted to, you could just walk away from the zone, and then I think it'll even say something cheeky like, "Yeah, I don't feel like playing either," or whatever.
Right. So I think the one small thing you could do there is like only spawn the challenge bins when the player accepts the challenge.
Oh, keep them hidden.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah. You know what? I think that's a really good idea.
Just because, go for it. Yeah, like that way you can sort of reduce the collision volume of the like challenge zone to be much closer to where the actual like raccoon appears, and you don't have as much of the like auto running. You don't have as many edge cases of like the raccoons ending up approaching from the wrong angle and any of that stuff. So.
Okay, I have written that down. Yeah, I think it's a really nice idea.
Okay, there we go.
I'm even picturing the idea that they actually sort of drop down from the skies.
Yeah. or it's a great opportunity to have like a little squash and stretch deformation on the bin model, just to have them kind of like, you'll see my like webcam in a moment. But yeah, just then kind of like popping into existence, um, sort of like the overall volume. Like I think you can really like push that cartoonish aspect of this, right? Like having stuff. I don't know. If you wanted to, you really could lean into the goat simulator aspect of this. Like have the raccoon be able to topple the cars, um, or even the trees, or like just in an almost like Katamari-esque way, like eventually you're just like punching your way through houses or whatever. Like you can get really silly with it, and I think that is in line with the vibe, if not necessarily the original idea. But it really depends
Indeed.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Climb the light pole. Yeah, I can. Um, but yeah, like I can even imagine like a funny thing that if you climb to the top of a lamppost, then it just like keels over while you're on it.
I think in this build it won't happen, but actually you will unlock an achievement from making it to the very tip of the light.
Gotcha.
But I
Oh
do
man.
like that's an interesting idea of it like toppling over, like just bing, down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because it
think
would be
that,
as simple as just enable physics on it, and then bang.
and
It's
I don't know.
tricky.
It is
It is
very tricky.
possible.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of being able to topple the light post and then using that to like make it fall towards a vehicle or a house, and then like causing extra mischief by like using the light post to sort of like crash into things as it's falling onto them.
Yeah.
I think the more sort of like mischief you can cause like that, the more things that are destructible, right? The
Hmm. Hmm.
the more kind
Yeah,
of.
because right now, like, yeah, the literally the only thing that you can move in this is a bin, right?
Mhm. Well, let me get the camera right up on this. Oh, because he starts that like auto mantle animation, and from there it's just like, no. Okay, come on, there we go. I'm going to get this. But in the meantime, yeah, like so yeah, I think, whether there's stuff that you find in trees that maybe like makes trees worth climbing, stuff that you
Mhm.
find on roofs that makes them worth
Oh yes,
climbing.
and actually there is one thing I've been meaning to experiment with, but I decided just like in terms of pre first release, like
Yeah.
I'm just tabling it for now, but I
Yeah.
do like the idea of hiding baby raccoons that would be
Yeah.
like stuck. And so I do have a pretty good working system where I have the baby raccoons will follow you like once you get to them. But I just need more thought into that. But I do think that plus the baby raccoons. Oh, I think you're gonna do it. Oh, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
Just inching forward here. Oh, I think it's as far forward as I can go. Uh, Unless I jump. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, and then I fell off the end, but I was there.
Yeah, did it.
Oh man, because now I just have the mental image of the raccoon like with his arms kind of like hanging from the lamppost as it like
Yeah.
topples over, you know.
Yeah.
Giving because okay, total like mental image here. The raccoon climbs up the lamppost, and then you switch to like a overhead view, and you like project a red line down onto the ground, and your raccoon is just dangling from it, and it teeters for just a moment, and you can kind of orient the camera whichever way you spin it, that's the way it falls. And if you can make it topple on top of a vehicle or topple into a house or something, then I don't know, however much destruction you want to be able to cause with that. That's the mental image. Again, obviously, like a lot of work to implement something like that, but
Yeah,
just that's what came to
that's the
mind.
thing. I mean, and I tell you, I am not short on ideas. One of the ideas that someone has often shared with me is if I had green bins, and each green bin had a, sort of like a mini game, like to unlock it, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
like I love that idea of us just like, no, that's beyond the scope. That's beyond.
I think it's something that would be like it'd have to be one heck of a good minigame to want to be able to do it every time you come across a green bin. Is the other thing.
That's true, and it's like, yeah, what is that mini game? Is it a logic puzzle or a combination thing? Like, yeah, and like it has to be, it has to be both good and fun, right?
So I think that one is definitely a bit more effort than like even if green bins just existed as something that like you had to like jump into them to like you had to physically touch the lid, right? Like their lids don't pop open. You specifically have to like your player model has to intersect with a small collider on the actual lid
Yeah,
in much the same way that you have the collider like triggering these little eating animations, just having
yeah,
something
totally,
that
totally.
or attacking it. Like you have to attack this small collider and that breaks
Hmm.
it open. Like that keeps the mechanics that
Yeah,
you've
it's
already
just some
got.
sort of a yeah, some sort of an interaction at least. Yeah,
There's a bit of odd geometry when I jumped there. I don't know. They oh yeah, you can sometimes when I jump, I sort of stay in the jump animation. Do you see that happening a couple times? It's gonna be
yeah,
it's like
I have
an
noticed it once or twice before.
something about this corner seems to be like a reproducible place for odd jumping behavior. So yeah, there, like my sort of my legs kicked back and when I hit the ground.
Intriguing, huh?
So I don't know what it is about this specific corner of the ground, but maybe something you can follow up on. Um, anyway, right. So a couple more power ups I think would help to round it out. Just a couple more ways of making mischief. You know, if you're not, if it's beyond the scope of the game to have the whole like dangling raccoon planning where the lampposts are going to fall, I do think it would be fun. Like maybe if and only when you get the strength power up do you actually have enough strength to like knock cars over. But I think that
Yeah.
could be a fun thing as well. And then being
Well,
able to
I remember
find
you just reminding me of something that I remember thinking once would be cool, but yeah, I I mean, I suppose all it takes is asking the question is if you were able to like grow in size such that your scale to the house is equal to your current scale to the trash bins, and then the each house becomes a bin sort of thing, and then you're just knocking around the streets. I think
Mhm.
that would be kind of neat. But the the way the models of the houses themselves, I don't know if that would work. I should at least give it a try because you never know, that could actually maybe work. And I can imagine the thrill of like someone that actually lives on Fallingbrook Avenue, just knocking their house over. Like I can just imagine that thrill, right?
Yeah, in a very like Katamari-esque way, you start by knocking over trash bins, then you get strong enough to knock over cars, and then eventually it's trees and then houses. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think the level design and sensibilities of Katamari in general, not a game I've actually played, just a game I've sort of seen played a couple times, but it could be something you could draw from in terms of like it is a similarly zen experience, but I think that they make a lot of the challenges in those games based off of timing. Like you have to get
And
a
so
certain number of
which game
points.
is this? Sorry, I'm
Oh, Katamari, the
oh, okay.
little like magical sticky ball,
Huh.
Katamari Damacy or
All right.
Damacy. has the very well known main theme that I'm not going to try to sing right now, but it's yeah, it's. I think a lot of the objectives in that game are like because it is a little sticky ball that is like growing from like a little tiny like the. I think you start by like picking up like desk supplies, and then eventually you're the size of a dog, and then you're the size of a trash bin, and then you're the size of a
Yeah,
car, and
no,
then eventually like you end up
it's
rolling up into the
somehow or
world.
another this game has eluded me, but I'm looking at it right now. That's crazy.
So I think you could take a look at the objective types that they have for the different levels in that game and see how you'd be able to do something similar. Because I think timing challenges are a natural way to like find chunks of these neighborhoods in Toronto, little pockets of the city that naturally make for good levels. And
Mhm.
then think about how the player is going to be sort of racing through these and maybe trying to knock over all the bins within a certain amount of time, but also reach a certain score, like get a certain score threshold within a certain time, just knock over the bins within a certain amount of time, um, find the baby raccoons, no time limit necessary, just find them, and then
Mhm.
they're on top of roofs or in trees or whatever.
Yeah, I was
Um,
thinking for that one, maybe like there'd be six hidden throughout each neighborhood.
yeah.
You know.
So yeah, I think that's and then maybe one of the objectives in a level is knock over certain number of cars, and then like that means that you sort of indirectly need to find x number of power-ups that will give you the ability to knock over x many cars or whatever,
Hmm.
like making some more objectives and thinking of each neighborhood as a a place where you can freely roam, but also has an objective as a level. I think that that'll help push things more in the direction of this feels like a game instead
Right.
of just a toy. Like because it can be a toy, it can be the like free roam mode, but it'll have these little like the nemesis raccoons that'll have these little interaction points that you can engage with, and it's like okay, that's the play of this neighborhood is this objective.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm writing down notes. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. Oh, there's a little honk from the I can't. Oh yeah, I can climb on them. So what's the? Do you have a name for the achievement of like surfing on the?
Yeah, what did I call it? I think I just called it like truck rider or something like that. Not especially memorable.
I'm trying to think of like how because whenever I see people riding on cars in games, they're like, oh, like Teen Wolf. It's like that's a show that I've only ever heard in the context of surfing on roofs of
That's
cars.
funny. Yes.
I'm pretty sure there was more to that show than just surfing on the roofs of cars, but for some reason, that's the only context in which I ever hear it mentioned. Um, okay, so uh, I think yeah. So I guess it in keeping with the idea of having an objective or more, like one or more objectives, because you can have the sort of okay, this neighborhood is all about this primary objective, and then sprinkled in and around, like maybe there's the baby raccoons in every level, maybe there's the nemesis raccoon in every level, but then separate from those, like there might be multiple baby raccoons and multiple nemesis raccoons you need to challenge. Those are the sort of like small challenges, and
Hmm.
then every level has something unique that either ties into a power up that you only find in that level, or has a feature like maybe the garbage collection only shows up in one neighborhood. Like that is the
Yeah.
challenge for that level
Yep.
is it's the
Yep.
garbage collection level, and
Yeah.
you're sort of racing against the truck.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just other stuff like that that you can treat each one of these as its own little sandbox and have the sort of like non-timed aspects that you can mess with until you find your way to whatever the like primary objective of the level is, and then those spawn in something that isn't there before. Like you don't let the player, like maybe they can sort of set things up for themselves in some way, but they can't like knock over the bins before the challenge even starts kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess maybe taking a look at Katamari could better influence, because again, I haven't actually played the game myself, so I can't easily say like, oh, like this and this. It's
Yeah.
like,
No,
well,
but I'm definitely going to be. I've got a few tabs open now,
awesome.
so I mean, checking that out for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's just about the end of the sort of like questions and feedback that I had to give on the game. But was there anything else you wanted to mention about it before we wrap things up for now?
Well, not right now, because yeah, you've given me some wonderful things to think about. I really do appreciate it, I must say. And and yeah, I'm kind of like it's interesting too when you have conversations like this. After a week of just like slogging it and not kind of like hating game development, and then you get excited again, and so I'm feeling excited again. So I'm already like looking forward to tomorrow, so I can start fresh and and maybe experiment with some of these things that we talked about. And
Awesome.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I just remembered there some guy I know. I don't know if he made himself. He had some sort of an asset that will actually add like damage to low poly things, and
Okay.
so I'm wondering if that's a thing I could get just add that to the cars, and if they get dinged up as over time, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Like if it's an easy thing to integrate, then like fantastic. But
Yeah,
otherwise, even just the fun of like sending them like flipping over on their roofs is going to be a fun enough thing, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially like you say, it's like that's what the power ups are for,
Yeah.
and we can keep it real, if
Mhm.
you will, initially, where like yes, all you can move is a bin, but eventually it's like what. That car just nudged. What? I can push a car. What? I can throw a car. Like
Yeah.
we can. I think that's an interesting idea of getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, you can sort of like ramp up the scale of the game over time. Again,
Yeah.
exactly like Katamari. And then same thing like with the houses, right? Like if you are eventually like Raccoonzilla stomping your way through the city,
Hmm.
just this animation slowed down, standing on your hind legs, and every time your foot bumps a house, just bunch of particles and shake the house as it sinks into the ground. No additional assets necessary. Just have things crumble beneath your feet.
Yes, actually, in particular, like your suggestion of using the stand animation. Yes, like that maybe should be. I reserve the standing animation for that instance. That's hmm. There is there is another animation that I don't have included right now that came with this. Is it'll roll up into a ball and you can move around almost like a bowling ball style.
Okay,
And that could also be that's very much like the katamari that you've described to me. So
you
oh
you could do a level of this that is just explicitly Katamari, and your
yeah,
raccoon balls up and you're rolling
yeah,
trash onto
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. So yes, so I don't know if I should be thanking you or cursing you for all these ideas. But I'll say thank you at this point.
It's to your discretion how many of these things you want to implement, but
Yeah, yeah.
you
And
know,
as people are fond of reminding me, it's like there's no harm in adding these after release, like that
mhm.
you can it's in fact it might even be wise to hold back on one or two things and put it out later. They've got something to promote again, in 6 months from now or whatever.
Yeah, because I think you can absolutely have a certain like take what you have now, have a couple neighborhoods with a couple objectives based on like as you said, you're very close to having things ready, but I would still say maybe consider making that just the early access release, and
Hmm.
then see what the reaction is to like how the game is right now, um, and the how much it is worth your time to continue to add features, and you can kind of like set the scope of, okay, there was this much interest in the game, cool, I'm going to make sure there are 10 neighborhoods in the game. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, there's only this much interest in the game, I think we'll just round things out with 5, or
Yeah.
somewhere in between, right? Like
Yeah.
the interest in the game is going to justify the continued development. But that's why I think early access is a good opportunity to kind of gauge exactly, like, I guess again, it really comes down to making it clear that, like, okay, make sure there's at least enough content here that when people buy the game, they say like, okay, I would be happy if this is all there was.
Hmm.
But to know that maybe starting at a lower price tier and then eventually, because I don't know whether it's just a matter of applying an early access discount or whether you actually can change the price. It's been a while since I've had a game in early access on Steam,
Yeah,
so
it's. I mean, I know you can change a price
mhm.
uh, of a released game.
Yes.
'Cause, yeah, I was just reading up on that. Uh, I consider early access early on, and
Mhm.
then I don't remember why I don't remember exactly what my rationale was, but in the end, I was just like, meh, let's just let's just get her done, kind of thing.
Okay. I mean, I guess it really comes down to how many of these ideas you ultimately want to implement, because then,
Right.
as you said, it's the difference between having something out and gauging the reaction of, okay, but how many people who think this is fun are actually going to go for it and buy it
Hmm.
versus, um, and that's why I think early access could be valuable in that respect,
Yeah.
because you're not beholden to stay in early access for very long, just long enough to, you know, like if it launches in early access with 3 neighborhoods and then leaves early access with 5 neighborhoods, you're done. But maybe it
That's an
stays in early
interesting point, right?
access.
Because like, who? Because you're right. I might get in there and then it becomes very apparent. Like, no, dude, you don't have a game here yet. It's like, okay, then I better make it a game. Like,
Mm,
or I might, yes, or I might discover it's like, yeah, it's there, just more levels or whatever, right?
yep.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. I'm adding research research early access again to my to-do list.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of other people in the like Ontario, even Toronto community
Oh,
who
for
would be able
sure.
to weigh in on that.
Research early access again. Yeah. There we are. Yeah, because it's been eons since I've really put serious thought into that. Oh, terrific. Well,
But
thank you,
yeah,
Gabriel. This has been fun.
absolutely. And if you, I think the only other like small suggestions I would put in are, um, maybe not halting the player when they eat something, because it can kind of interrupt the flow of a combo when you're trying to knock a bin about and then suddenly the character like comes to a stop to eat something.
Yeah, and actually, what I've actually been thinking is actually adding an interaction to that. So you
Yes.
actually do not eat unless you press what I guess what is it? You would press B.
Yeah. Something that like actually because then it's player prompted. I think that would work perfectly.
Yeah,
And then the
I've been thinking
other,
of that for a while. I think you've kind of sold me on that one.
okay, cool. And I think one other thing that could be fun is, even if you don't go for the full like Katamari level, I think like having some kind of ragdoll physics. Again, I can't help but think of Goat Simulator, right? Like if this
Yeah.
game, if you pitch this to a publisher as it's Goat Simulator meets Katamari, like it's the sort of chaotic energy of that, but just a little less lol random and a little more like objective based, then I think that there'd be something fun to explore with the synthesis of those two things. But ragdoll physics is a very easy way to sell, like, just stuff looks really ridiculous when you start like rolling down a hill and you're kind of like sprawled out, and then eventually you kind of like snap back into an animation. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
ragdoll physics is a wonderful gift, and that makes things funny.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's the last sort of suggestion I have there. But yeah,
That's
Jason, thank you
terrific.
so much for joining me on the call. It's been a lot of fun to like discuss all these things.
Yes, likewise. Well, and thanks a lot, eh?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of fun for me because I get to just like rhyme off a bunch of game ideas and then not have to stress about being the one to implement all of them.
Like, yeah, like I say, it's like, yeah, yeah. Should I be thanking you or should I be cursing you? I don't know. I'll decide later. I'll let you know.
Sounds good. All right. Well, do keep me apprised about the ongoing
I
development of this
absolutely
game.
will.
And
Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good night.
Good night.